Welcome to Yoga Girl. Kara Adams here, your favorite yoga girl. I wanted to talk about upward facing dog tonight. Yesterday we did downward facing dog, Adho Mukha Svanasana. So today we're doing upward facing dog, Urdhva Mukha Svanasana. Upward facing dog is pretty much the opposite of downward facing dog. You're looking up, and in downward facing dog you're looking down. How simple is that? Right? Am I not right? Is that not amazing? Okay, so upward facing dog, you're going to stretch the front side of the body, and it's really feeling awesome when you are like doing a lot of crunches and then you stretch an upward facing dog. You're like just pulling along your rectus abdominis here and stretching the front of those hips, that iliopsoas area. Feels amazing. Even those quadriceps, just a little bit. I'll show you another stretch another day for the quadriceps, but this upward facing dog feels really great because you kind of open up the chest a little bit too. And so to go into upward facing dog, we can start from downward facing dog. And remember downward facing dog, I told you can always start with dolphin. So if you're starting in downward facing dog here, and the modification is here on your elbows, you're going to have to go into your downward facing dog and then walk yourself into what's called a plank, and then just take yourself down into the ground. So you're down on the ground here, and what you're going to do is you're going to bring your wrist and your hands right underneath your shoulders. You're going to bring your feet together, and you're going to lift yourself up like so. So even if you want to start with your toes tucked under and push yourself up and then walk one foot at a time, rolling onto the top of the foot. Now you're going to pull your shoulder blades down and back towards your hips. You're going to make sure your shoulders are right above your wrists. You're going to make sure you feel a little bit of weight in the fingertips and slightly gaze up. Now, that's upward facing dog. My legs, you can't see it, but my knees are off the ground. Now a modified version, I can put my knees on the ground and bend my elbows a little bit more. And I'll go into like a baby cobra. And this is Bhujanganasana. So if this is too much, come down here. Okay? Alright. You can always stretch that out a little bit if you need to. So that's upward facing dog. And it feels really nice, opening up through the hips, rolling the shoulders down and back, gazing up into the sky. It doesn't have to be far. You can look halfway, or you can just look your eyes up so that your focus isn't down. You're upward facing. So that's upward facing dog. We talked a little about attachment yesterday, and today I wanted to just address aversion. Aversion is actually the experience of something that was painful, usually ingrained deeply within. So it's not just something that, like the familiar that we were talking about yesterday. It's ingrained within you, like as when you were a kid. It's that deep. Sometimes we try to avoid aversions, or an aversion can take us back to an experience that we had in the past. And so a lot of times when you say aversion, you just want to think of that experience and it like a familiar smell, and you're like, oh, it takes you right back to a date and time where you're like, oh, I remember that so vividly in my head right now. And it was painful. It wasn't something that was a joy, but it's something you try to avoid because you don't want to feel that pain all over again. So that's an aversion. And a lot of times you're probably thinking, what does this have to do anything with yoga? Well, sometimes when you do yoga, things come up. Remember the first couple times when I talked about
how yoga is, it means union, and you're bringing yourself together physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally. Well, when you're practicing yoga, sometimes you're not just like doing it to look good. Sometimes, all the time, you're toning your inside muscles. You're toning those soft muscle tissues, your stomach muscles, your kidneys, your liver. You're toning those things too. You're not just working on like the definition out here that you can see, but you're working on in here too. And when you're doing that, sometimes we stir a lot of things that are going on in our body, not just the physical, but the spiritual and the emotional. And so like attachments and aversions will come up in your yoga practice, and it's how you deal with it is what you're going to get for your end result. Are you going to try to avoid it? Are you going to deal with it right then and there so you can move on, like I said yesterday, to contentment and peace? Namaste.